Welcome into the official. We are going through the running backs star index, a new metric that we have kind of solidified here at C2C and on the official, and helps us identify college running back prospects that have an NFL potential. If you didn't hear the full explanation, go back and check the previous video, and we'll go through all what goes into star index. But for now, we're just going to take a look at the current college landscape and through the lens of RB star index. Matt, a guy that you were definitely beating that drum when he was a prospect. He's now completed his freshman year, headed into season 2 as a starter and getting a lot of buzz. Kaden Fegan with an index of 99.1. Now that number points to future NFL bell cow. Are you ready to say that right now for Fegan, or are you still hoping but a little bit tentative on that, on declaring him an NFL bell cow?
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't go bell cow at this point yet. Although, he's still obviously a very promising player. They'll definitely get a lot more playing time this year. I've always kind of liked him. The model, just really loves giant running backs.
Right.
Maybe it's a sample thing, but the bigger the better. Really, it just loves them. Maybe a bit too much. I would probably agree with that. But this is just how it is right now. And there's been plenty of big running backs that have succeeded. Brandon Jacobs is kind of the big one in the database, and being like 260 pounds, it kind of messes with the data a bit, maybe.
Yeah, I think the NFL likes big running backs too, big and fast. And we already have, Belima saying Fegan broke 21 miles per hour, I think, at like over 250 pounds this spring. So, big and fast. He already has some production on his resume, and currently the #1 star index score in all of college football with a 99.1 puts him up there with your Saquon Barkleys of the world in terms of star index. Cam Seldon was a bit of a multi-tool guy. We haven't really seen him do much yet coming into this year. I think he's still a little bit buried on the depth chart. But then we go to Raheem Sanders with a 98 score. Very, very good score. No worries about him being a potential NFL guy. David, if he can come back from his injury, now looking at it with a star index of 98.0, do we think Raheem Sanders is like a day 2 pick, future NFL RB1?
I think he has that capability. Obviously, he's another jumbo type, but really good pass catcher also. Had a lot of injuries last year, so hopefully he can bounce back. Wouldn't mind, though, if he was down in the 230s, maybe get a little more speed out of him. Maybe he has a better chance of staying healthy. But, yeah, I think, obviously, 98, I think this is doing a pretty good job of blanketing big athletic players to, look into further, and he's definitely one.
Yeah, and then Victor Rosa is very interesting. He pops up on this list, and if you're not a absolute sicko, I would say, in the college football space, you probably haven't heard of Victor Rosa, UConn running back. But he does have good size. Entering, I believe, his 3rd year. He hasn't been terribly productive yet for the Huskies, but awesome star index score here. And, there's potential there. Keep an eye on the big season this year. For UConn, you could see a transfer up potential to P4 and then maybe do something additional after that. He's a name I think surprised a lot of us when we ran the numbers. Because then you have Singleton, Carson Hansen we've talked about before, Kavorian Barnes, star UTSA, Devin Neal, guy we've been talking about for years now. Even though he went to Kansas, we knew pretty much right away he was going to be a really good player. Let's see another name here. Alton McCaskill, interesting one, another injury situation. But when he burst onto the scene as a true freshman, he was looking very, very good. And now we'll see what he can do. I guess, is he at Arizona now? He's bounced around a couple of places. But I know he went to Colorado for a minute, but I don't think he ever played for them. And I think he's at Arizona now, or Arizona State. Okay, so that's the current landscape. I think all these guys, based on running back star index, have a chance to be an RB1 in the NFL. I think realistically, you probably want to take into account, if you're doing this for, writing down your draft list, writing down your Devy lists, probably want to take into account like P4 prestige. We know those guys get drafted higher. So if they're playing for a good P4 team, that's even better. And then the other ones might be diamonds in the rough. And of course, you want guys who are playing, like Miles Davis for BYU. Not sure he's going to play behind LJ Martin. So, like, even though he's got a great star index, use your intuition there and say, maybe he's just doesn't have something else that matters. But for most of these guys, very promising potential there in the future. So I got to do some maneuvering over here. But what do you guys think of the 2023 running back class? We talked about Fegan, and then I'll bring up the other guys in that class who might be making a name for themselves this year. But anybody else come to mind other than Fegan? So this is the group. We've got Fegan here at the top, of course. Some other guys, though, who are in line to maybe have a second-year leap. Jeremiah Love at Notre Dame. I'll throw it to you, David. What are you hearing about Love so far this year? I know Prince is another guy, or Price, who is in that backfield. But Love with a really nice score here, if he could take over, be the RB1, that he puts right on the Devy map and C2C leagues, of course.
Yeah, it sounds like Notre Dame's pretty bullish on Jeremiah Love. He's considered like a slashing type back. He did come in. He didn't break a ton of tackles in high school and was on the weaker side, I feel like. But in the offseason, he's gotten up to 206 from, I think, they weighed him after the season last year, and he was down to like 192 or something like that. So he's taken the offseason. It sounds like he's dedicated to the gym, to bulking up and adding like 14 pounds. So that's good. Yeah, he's a tricky one I think he ended up making my tier 2 coming out of high school. He had like a tricky production profile because he played for a team that was in just so many blowouts that he just didn't have tons of touches, but really good receiving back that had like 28 yards per reception as a senior. So I think that's kind of the big draw with him, is that he can catch passes and he's really agile. So looking forward to him potentially breaking out this year.
Yeah, I think that would be great. And, with this star index score, someone you probably want to bet on. Javius Bond, a smallish guy who went to ECU. He had a nice freshman season, looks to maybe be their main back this year. So keep an eye out on the Pirates. And then there's a guy here who I think slipped through so many cracks and then burst on the scene late in the year as a complete bell cow beast for Minnesota. And then now is being drafted C2C. Devy and college football analysts on our website think he could lead all of college football in rushing yards. That's Darius Taylor with an 85.7 score. I'll tell you what, if we had this in the way it is now, he would have been way higher on my list. I didn't really know that much about Darius Taylor, to be honest with you. I think he was a 3-star who went to Minnesota, and now all of a sudden, total beast. And I think that's where this list, the star index, can really help. It puts these guys in a context where you can start picking and choosing, even if they're ranked low by the services. The services don't tell you miles per hour. Services aren't telling you how fast these guys are. You got to go do that research yourself. At C2C, we're giving you this number that puts these guys in a context, and you can say, I'm going to select him. I'm going to take him as late round flyer, even if the ADP is nothing for your C2C leagues. One person I wanted to highlight here is Trey Wisner down here at the bottom. I think it's easy to say 12.9 RB star index. That is very bad, very, very low. And he's going to potentially take over for the Cedric Baxter vacated touches after his injury. Matt, what do you think about that? Like, after looking at this, I'm not bullish on Trey Wisner. I mean, Texas doesn't have a ton of gifted backs back there in terms of the star index, and we'll see on the next slide. But like, I think I'm not betting on Trey Wisner to do anything with this.
I mean, yeah, I wasn't really a big fan of Trey Wisner coming out either. A solid back, probably not a guy you want to be your starting RB1 if you're a school like Texas, at least. They typically have a bit of a higher caliber player there.
Well, that's a great segue into the next slide here because, it's interesting. Actually, I think we have a Texas guy on all three of our running back class slides. And to be honest, they aren't really like flush with superstar from a running back star index point of view. Here we go, the 2024 freshman class. So these are guys who are incoming freshmen this year. And I'll just call it out since we're talking about Texas. Jarek Gibson, who is a very highly rated running back for all the services over the, almost since he was a true freshman. We said we didn't love him. And now he comes through with a 42.2 RB star index. It's higher than Trey Wisner, but still at a point where you're not really even projecting like NFL stardom other than maybe a committee type guy. So Texas, gets highly rated guys, but honestly, even Cedric Baxter is not very highly rated on the star index score. On the flip side, interesting guys. Minnesota's got another one. Ijiboy looks great from the star index. I haven't heard him making waves in camp yet, but keep an eye on that guy when Darius Taylor either transfers or goes to the NFL. David, a guy we always loved throughout the whole process, Johan Cardenas at Vanderbilt with a 95.4 percentile. Obviously, that backs up what we were saying about him. And anybody else here you want to highlight from the 2024 class based on RB star index?
I can take one real quick. The Salahadan Allah, I probably butchered that name, but that one kind of tilted me because I think he committed after Cornell Hatcher committed to Oregon State. Cornell Hatcher was a guy that I liked pretty early in the process, or definitely throughout his senior season because his production was so good against a really good, strong competition. And since updating the athletic model, I think he's like 64th percentile, and Allah, who committed to Oregon State, also is like 90th. And it sounds like I think he's in the 2 deep or pushing for the 2 deep already. So I'm gonna have to take an L on Hatcher, it looks like. But generally speaking, Hatcher would have had a pretty strong profile for essentially a G5 team, I think. So that kind of hurts, but I'm saying now probably pivot to Allah because he's obviously pretty freaky.
Yeah, Allah's looking good. He is pushing for the 2 deep. I wrote about him and some freshmen that are making noise already. And then I'll just throw out Cameron Dickey here, already making tons of noise for Texas Tech. Probably going to be the backup to Taj Brooks, who got nearly 300, or I think did get 300 touches last year. So that's a running back one you definitely want in college fantasy at Texas Tech. And Cameron Dickey making noise already. And in fact, one beat writer, I believe, said he's like not going to be a stud. He already is. So high praise for Cameron Dickey. He played kind of quarterback in high school, like an option quarterback. So maybe that's why his eval was potentially tamped down for the services and for a lot of other people. He was ranked pretty low, but we have him obviously very high and looking really good. Next show, we're going to look at the 2025 class and who you need to circle and get on your C2C fantasy teams as we look down the line at the next incoming freshman class. Stick with us on The Official.